Hi friends, today I am so excited to share with you 5 brand new Christmas DIYs that can all be done on a budget, and several of them are great for celebrating the true meaning of Christmas. I really enjoyed making these projects and I think you're going to love them too. For this Nativity Christmas countdown, I am going to be using this house decor piece from Dollar Tree. You can use any of their house-shaped pieces to make this. You just may have to customize it a little bit. I'm going to be using these 2 larger wooden blocks, also from Dollar Tree, and you just want to make sure that the blocks that you're using are going to fit proportionately to the house that you decide to use for your project. I'm also going to be using these 5-gallon paint stir sticks. I get mine at Walmart. They're about $1.29 for a pack of 3. And I'm going to be using this little 3D craft kit, the Nativity scene. This I picked up at Dollar Tree. I'm also going to be using one of the larger craft sticks. And then for my paint, I'm going to be using a linen white chalk paint. And I'll also be using a midnight blue color of craft paint, as well as a brown paint, or this is an antique wax. Either one will work. And I'm also going to be using a metallic silver craft paint. Since the house piece that I am using does not have any sides on it, I am going to be creating my own using the paint stir sticks. So if the house piece that you are using has sides on it already, then you probably won't need to do this step, but I am going to just measure how tall up the side of my house and mark that where the roof line starts, so that I know where to cut this off. And I actually flipped it over so I can mark it using the angle on the back side because I want to cut my craft stick at an angle so that my roof pieces lay nice and flat when I put those on. And by using these longer paint stir sticks, I only have to make one cut at this angle, because then I can use that same end on the other side, just continuing down my paint stir stick and cut it the right length. So hopefully that makes sense, but if I cut the one angle, then I'll have 2 sticks that have an angle cut, and I can use both of those, one on each side. And I'm going to give you the best Christmas gift idea that you can give to anyone who does crafting. This little USB vacuum is amazing. I love it so much. It's great for cleaning up glitter and sawdust and any kind of little floral pieces or anything. I've charged it once since I've owned it, and I think I've owned it for almost a year now. But I use it all the time when I'm crafting, and it's amazing. So the link is in my favorite crafting tools down in the description box, and it's a perfect, inexpensive gift to give the crafter in your life. Or buy it as a gift for yourself. Trust me, you won't regret it. So once I have those sticks cut, I am just going to use a little bit of sandpaper and smooth out the edges and make sure there's no rough spots or splinters. Since the surface of the house that I am using is very slick and shiny, I'm going to give that good sanding as well, just to rough it up so that the paint will stick to it better. And then I'm going to give this a couple of coats of the midnight blue paint. Next, I'm going to prep my blocks by removing the labels and sanding them really well. These did have quite a few little ridges and were not real smooth. It probably would have been better to use a power sander, but I didn't do that. So I did have to sand quite a bit on these to get them fairly smooth. And these I am going to paint with that linen white chalk paint. And if you're wondering about my paint, I like to put them in a canning jar. I don't like the little paint cans. I hate dealing with the paint lids. And so this is my solution to that. And it pretty much just took one coat of paint for these blocks, but I did touch them up in a couple of spots that needed two coats, but these painted up really nicely. Now that my blue paint is dry, I'm going to take a little bit of the white chalk paint and I'm going to use an old toothbrush and water down the paint just a little bit. And I'm going to use my finger to flick the bristles so that it splatters onto my blue surface so that it looks like stars. This is also a technique that you can use to make it look like snow. And if you get your paint too watery, you will get those bigger drops. And if you don't like those, you can take a damp paper towel or Q-tip and real quickly wipe those up before they dry. Since the bottom edge of my house piece is just raw wood, I am going to take some of that antique wax or just some brown craft paint would work and go ahead and paint that. This is the same color or paint that I am going to be using for the sides of my little stable as well. I'm also going to use that same antique wax on this craft stick, but before I do, I'm going to use these miter shears just to cut off the curved edges of the craft stick so that I have square corners. Then I'm going to give my craft stick a coat of the antique wax on both sides. And as I said before, I'm going to also paint those two pieces of wood that I cut for the sides of my stable with that same antique wax. And of course, you can use just a brown craft paint or you could use stain as well. Next, I'm going to set my blocks back on my house and I'm going to mark on the house the top of the blocks where those sit because I want to put my design above the blocks so that the blocks are not blocking them. Get it? Blocking them? Sorry about that. Anyway, I am using the little Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus in the manger pieces from that Nativity craft kit. And these I'm just using as a pattern. If you want, you could just paint these and glue them on. That would probably be faster. But I also have another project that I want to use these for, and I only have one set of them. So that's why I'm doing it this way. But you totally could just paint the pieces and glue them on. I'm also going to take the little stable piece from that craft kit and trace that star as a pattern. And this actually ended up being a little bit harder than I thought, just because it's not really as big as I wanted it to be, but I did kind of help use it for placement and kind of just give me an idea of where to put the star. So since I'm not using the actual wood pieces, I am going to use this metallic silver paint and a small liner paintbrush, and I'm going to paint my shapes on. And it did take two coats to cover this well, but you could use a paint marker, but it might be a little challenging to get into the really thin areas with that. And of course, as I said before, the easiest would be just to paint those wood pieces and glue them on. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue on the sides of my stable, and I am just using hot glue. I like to use Gorilla Glue sticks in my hot glue gun. I just think they hold better. And you just want to make sure that your side is flush with the bottom so that your stable will sit nice and stable. Oh my goodness, I did it again. Anyway, now that I have my sides on, I am going to cut the pieces for my roof. And so I'm just going to mark about an inch past the side, and I am going to be cutting these at a 45-degree angle so that I have kind of that angled edge at the bottom ends of my roof as well. And so I'll cut both of the roof pieces. Then I'll give them a quick sanding and also paint them with that same antique wax that I used for the sides of the stable. And I did decide to go ahead and cut both ends at an angle so that they fit nicely together at the peak of the roof. So after painting these and letting them dry, I'm going to use my hot glue and just attach them to the top of the stable. I decided that I just wanted to draw my numbers on my blocks, but you could use a Cricut machine or stencils or decals, whatever you have. But to make the numbers 1 through 25 on your blocks, you will need to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on one block, and 0, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8 on the second block. And just keep in mind when making your 6 that it is going to double as your 9 as well. And I just drew my numbers on with a pencil, and then I went over them with a black paint marker, and I don't know what happened to that footage. It just disappeared. So anyway, here are my blocks with the numbers on them. And also what disappeared was my footage where I wrote Christ is born on that craft stick with a white paint marker. And I did notice here when I was taking my blocks in and out that the white paint was kind of rubbing off on the blue paint. So I did decide to go ahead and give the blocks and the stable all a coat of sealer to just help keep that from happening. But I think this turned out really cute. I like how the little Christ is born sign kind of helps hold the blocks in place. And I just think this is a sweet little Christmas countdown that really is about what the true meaning of Christmas is. For this next project, I picked up this cinnamon candle and this birch wood bundle from Hobby Lobby. They were both on sale for 50% off. And I also am going to be using some jute twine and these red berries. They say autumn garland, but they are a perfect red to go with this candle. And I'm going to be using a little bit of greenery. So I'm going to start by removing the plastic wrap from the candle, and then I'm going to take this birch wood bundle and untie it. And the regular price on this is just $6.99, which is a good price, but I got it for 50% off. And I love how it's all tied together and you can just cut off whatever length you have. And I still have all of this to use for another project. So I'm going to wrap this around my candle, and it doesn't quite go all the way around, but I'm going to pull this as tightly around the candle as I can, and then I'm going to wrap my jute twine around it 3 or 4 or 5 times, and just tie that really securely around the candle. Once I have that twine tied securely in a tight knot around the candle, I am going to take some of my pine and just cut a couple of really small pieces to use for this. I always like to kind of lay out my floral things and see what it looks like before I start gluing things on. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to take a little bit of that red berry garland and I'm going to tie a bow with some jute twine, and I'm going to add that on the top, put on my little pine boughs, and then put a little bit of those red berries, just kind of make a little spiral of those red berries and stick those on the front as well, and just make a cute little embellishment on this. Super easy project, but I think it looks really cute. For this next project, I'm going to be using this Nativity 3D craft set from Dollar Tree. And I'm also going to be using one of these wall decor pieces from Dollar Tree. They carry these usually for all the different seasons, so it really doesn't matter what it says on it, we just need the shape. I'm going to also be using my linen white chalk paint as well as some black chalk paint and a little bit of my brown antique wax. And if you don't have the antique wax, you can just use a brown craft paint. For this project, I will be using all of the pieces that come in the little 3D Nativity craft kit. And I am going to take the base that these would fit down into, and I am going to be cutting it in half because I want to make a long strip to put my little pieces in. And even though my miter box is a little bit too narrow, I can still put this in at an angle and line up that center line with the guide for my saw and cut this in half. I love this miter box tool. It is such a wonderful thing to have for doing easy small projects like this. Then I'm going to sand my wood pieces, and I am also going to go over this little wood sign. Oh, it's not really wood, it's like MDF, but I'm going to go over this with my sandpaper just to rough it up because it's a pretty smooth surface and I want my paint to stick to it real well. So then I'm going to give it a coat or 2 or 3 or 4, I think, of this linen white chalk paint. I'm also going to paint these 2 little base pieces that I just cut in half with the white chalk paint, and just took a couple coats for that. And then I'm going to paint all of my other wood pieces using the black chalk paint. And I'm also going to paint the backs of all of these pieces as well because they will be able to be seen. So I just want the project to look nice and finished. I am going to be gluing the manger on the back side of the stable piece and not actually pushing it down into the groove. And so I need to trim down the little part on the bottom of the manger that would normally have been pushed down into the groove. And so I'm just cutting this down using a ruler and an X-Acto knife, and making it so that I can still glue it to the back of the stable and be able to push the stable piece down into the groove. Before I attach my nativity, I am going to go ahead and glue those little base pieces with the groove in them onto that bottom sign that I'm using as the main base, and I'm just measuring and making sure that I have everything centered. I'm making sure the groove is down the center of the main base piece, and then I'm going to just use my hot glue gun with some Gorilla Glue sticks and glue those down. And a little hack for you is if your hot glue sets up too quickly, you can use your heat tool to heat that up and reposition your piece. For my next step, I am going to add my words on the front of the base, and I found this font that I really liked, and so I just traced that out on a paper with some pencil, and then I'm going over the back with a lead pencil. And you know, this is totally old school, and my battery died and I missed this whole part, but I basically just took this, went over it on the backside with the pencil, and then I laid that on my project and traced my words so that it transferred to my project. And then I just used a Sharpie marker to write my words. So then, just to give it that old touch, I also added a little bit of that brown paint or antique wax on the front side of my sign around the edges, just to give it an antiqued or worn look. And you'll notice that I did not do this along the top where that groove is, because I kind of want that just to disappear. I don't want to highlight it. And now I'm going to add in my stable, and it's a little tight to get in there, so you just want to do this carefully so you don't break it, but I just pushed it down in there. And I am going to offset this. I don't want to center the stable because I'm going to put the wise men over on the right hand side. So I'm just going to press that down in, and I didn't glue this or anything. It was plenty tight just to hold it in there. Then I'm going to take my little manger and I'm going to glue that on the back side of the stable. I'm going to add Mary on the right side, and I'm going to glue her on the front. So this is kind of going to give it a little bit of dimension. And so just a little bit of hot glue on the edge there. And I'm going to place her on the right side, and I'm going to place Joseph on the left. Then I'm going to take those wise men and put them on the right side of the stable, and they did fit a little looser in that groove, so I did decide to add just a little bit of hot glue on the bottom to hold them in. And that's all I'm going to do with this project. I really like how simple and clean it looks, and it's just a really pretty nativity decor piece.
Hi friends, thank you so much for watching. If you are new to my channel, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Chantel and I live in Idaho with my husband Chris. We are empty nesters, we both work full-time, and I love to do Dollar Tree DIYs and DIYs on a budget. So if you enjoy those things too, then make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on so you won't miss out on any projects. Before we get on to this next project, I just want to take a minute and say this project took me for a ride on the struggle bus. If you think that YouTube creators don't struggle with their DIYs, then I apologize. I am sorry that we have given you that impression, because we totally do struggle with our projects sometimes. And this project gave me a run for my money. And so I thought I would just include some of those issues that I had, so that maybe it would save you from experiencing some of the same things. So while I struggled with it, I really do like how this project came out. So let me show you how I did it.
For this project, I am using a thrifted frame, and I got this for $5.99. It was originally $25 at Hobby Lobby, and you could use basically any picture frame for this, or even like maybe a canvas or something. Just for reference, this one that I got and I'm using is a little bit less than 16, the long way, 16 inches, and a little bit less than 12 inches in width. I'm also going to be using 5 of these little wooden trees that I picked up at Dollar Tree, I believe last year, but I think they still have them. They're little just unfinished wood ornaments. And then I'm going to be using 6 of these wood beads, as well as a little bit of jute twine. I originally thought I was going to be using some of this wired ribbon. I did want to show you this though, because this is from Walmart. For less than $3, you get this nice spool of really nice ribbon. These are also from Walmart. They are 97 cents, so cheaper than the Dollar Tree, and I thought those were really pretty with the lamb's ear in them. I am going to be using some words that I made on my Cricut machine, and I'm going to be using some red and some green paint. I'm guessing that someone added some twine to this to use in their wedding so they could braid the cords together. It was just attached with some Scotch tape, so I'm going to remove that. And then I'm also going to try and remove the verse on this, even though it's a great verse. I'm trying to make this completely black, so I am going to use some acetone to try and remove this. And typically this works like with Dollar Tree things, but this did not work at all on this. It didn't even lighten it or anything, and I was using 100% acetone on this, so this was my first challenge. It's like, okay, this is not coming off, so now what am I going to do? So I decided, let's take some black chalk paint and just paint over the top of it. And the black chalk paint painted over this beautifully, but here's the mistake I made. I should have sanded this surface because it was too smooth, and as you will see coming up, the paint did not stick to this at all. But while that paint was drying, I moved on, and I took my trees and my green paint, and I'm just going to paint both sides of 5 of these little wooden tree ornaments with the green paint. So not only was I having trouble with this DIY, I was also having trouble with my camera, and it didn't record. I don't know if I didn't push the button or if it just didn't record, but I did put some matte finish Mod Podge over the paint once it was dry to give it more of a just a finished looking surface. And so then I am taking my jute twine and I am putting my beads, which I painted red, on this, and I'm not going to thread the trees onto the twine because then they would not lay flat. I'm going to actually just glue them onto the twine. So I'm going to tie a knot on one end and just glue that up in one corner. And then I'm going to kind of figure out how long I need this to be, for how long I want my little garland to hang down, and just tie another knot and glue that in the other corner. So the beads fit tight enough on this twine that I think they're going to stay in place. So I'm not adding any glue to keep them in place, but then I am going to kind of space my trees evenly. And then I am going to put on the word Christmas that I cut out on my Cricut machine. And here's where everything went south.
Oh no! Oh, this is turning into a disaster. Ah!
And so here we are again, back at square one. I decided then to take a piece of black foam core board that I cut to size and just glue it over the top. And I think that was a good solution. I am going to test putting a little bit of the matte finish Mod Podge on the foam core board to see what it does with that. See, I was smart. I tested it on a scrap piece first, and I did like the way that it made it look, and it didn't bubble or anything. So I went ahead and gave my foam core board a coat of the matte finish Mod Podge, and I really liked how that made it look. It just made it look more like the surface I was wanting instead of just a piece of foam core board. So I have to apologize because once again, I didn't have footage of me putting the Christmas word on again, but as you can see, it worked fine. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my letters onto my trees. And so obviously this is going to spell out the word Merry. And I really like how these letters, because they are black, it actually kind of looks like the letters are cut out once you get the trees on that black background. And so I really, really liked how that came out. And this was why I didn't glue my trees onto the twine yet, because I wanted to put these letters on before gluing them on. I just knew it would be easier. And now I'm going to go ahead and reattach my twine to the corners, the top corners, and then I'm going to add my trees in. And I want to make sure that that center tree is centered in the middle, so I am using my ruler to make sure that that happens. And then I'm going to just space these out. These trees were big enough that basically I didn't really have any wiggle room. The trees on the side ended up right up against the side of the frame, so it was pretty easy to space them. And you do want to make sure you kind of hold this up, the twine up away from the black part, so that your hot glue doesn't stick your trees down to it, because you want your garland just to be kind of like free flowing. You don't want it to be glued to the background. Okay, so my original thought was to add some greenery or florals and some ribbon and stuff to embellish this a little more, and it seemed like nothing I tried looked like I wanted it to. It just was not coming together, at least in my mind, and so I struggled with what I wanted to do for embellishments on this. And when it came down to it, it just on the corner, it just looked like too big and made it look like really lopsided. And then I decided to maybe try to add something to the top center and make a bow and add a little greenery in there, and that was just not coming together. So I finally just ended up leaving it without any greenery or the bow and just keeping it simple. And I'm so glad that I did because it just looks clean and it doesn't need all that other stuff. So let me know in the comments what you think. Should I have added the greenery to this and the bow, or one or the other, or both? Or is it good just without it? This next project I am going to make using a string of these wire LED lights from Dollar Tree. I'll also be using a package of these miniature glass containers that have the cork stoppers in the top. There are 7 in this package. And these are kind of a medium size, I would say. I think they do have some smaller ones and possibly some larger ones as well, but here you can see more of what the size is. I am going to be using a few pieces of these miniature pine picks from Dollar Tree. You just want some that are really thin that can go inside those bottles. And then I'll be using just a few little berries off of just some sprigs that I had. And I'll be using some Epsom salt, which you can get at Dollar Tree as well. So I started by laying out my bottles and my lights and kind of figuring out where I wanted to place my bottles. And it came out so that if I put a bottle on every other light, it was perfect. So I am going to put some Epsom salt inside my little containers, and then I'm going to put just a little sprig of greenery and a few little berries inside, and it just looks so cute. This, I feel like I got a little bit too much salt in, so I shook a little bit out, but it is helpful to have just a little tool that you can kind of push things down inside the bottle but I'm just going to repeat this with all 7 bottles, adding the Epsom salt, a little piece of greenery, and a few berries. Once I'm happy with how my bottles look, I'm going to attach them to the string of lights. So I'm going to skip the first light that's closest to the battery pack, and then I'm going to just fold over the wire so that I can push that little light, that second light, into the bottle. Fold the wires kind of down around the bottle and hold it. And then this does take a little dexterity, but I'm going to add a tiny drop of hot glue to the bottom of that cork and then just push that down into the bottle to hold the light in and hold the wire and everything, make it all secure. And it just looks so pretty with that light illuminating the bottle. Then I'm just going to repeat this, adding a bottle to every other light. And just look how sweet these are, just draped around your decor, or you could hang them, but I just think they are super sweet. I hope you enjoyed these 5 new Christmas DIYs. Let me know in the comments which was your favorite. And if you did enjoy this video and these projects, please hit that like button. It really helps my channel and helps other people to see this video as well. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed day and a Merry Christmas.